Shadows between stars. The transmission came again at precisely 3:27 Earth Standard Time, just as it had for the past 17 nights. Ilara Voss leaned forward in her chair, the blue light of her holographic display casting sharp shadows across her face as she adjusted the reception parameters. "There's a pattern here," she murmured, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. The linguistics lab aboard Orbital Station Artemis was empty at this hour, which suited her perfectly. Ilara had always preferred working alone, especially when dealing with something as potentially groundbreaking as these signals. The transmission wasn't like anything in the database, not Valorian, not Centaurian, not even resembling the scattered pulsar communications used by the nomadic drift cultures. It had structure, though. Definite linguistic markers that suggested sentience rather than natural cosmic phenomena. Her terminal chimed with an incoming call. "Dr. Voss, your presence is requested in Docking Bay 7, announced the station's AI. "Priority diplomatic arrival." Ilara sighed, saving her work. "Who's arriving at this hour?" "Catharan diplomatic vessel. Designation Twilight Whisper. The ambassador has specifically requested your expertise." That was unusual. The Catharan conclave rarely reached out to human specialists, preferring their own xenolinguists. Their towering forms and intricate facial ridges made them intimidating to most humans, but Ilara had always found their culture fascinating. 30 minutes later, Ilara stood in the gleaming white expanse of Docking Bay 7 as the Catharan shuttle completed its docking sequence. The ship was elegant, sleek purple-black metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The airlock cycled open, and Ambassador Nexalor stepped through. Unlike most Catharans who favored elaborate ceremonial armor, he wore simple diplomatic robes of deep indigo. The bioluminescent patterns along his facial ridges pulsed with a calm blue light. "Dr. Ilara Voss," he said, his voice a resonant baritone that seemed to vibrate through her chest. "Your reputation extends even to the outer conclave. I come bearing grave tidings that require your specific talents." "Ambassador," she replied with a slight bow. "I'm honored, though confused why you'd seek me specifically." His expression shifted, the ridges around his eyes tightening. "Because you've been receiving the transmissions." Ilara felt a chill run through her. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because they were never meant for human ears," Nexalor said gravely. "What you've discovered is an echo of something ancient, a conflict that has shaped galactic politics for millennia without your species ever knowing." Station Director Reeves joined them, his weathered face tight with concern. "Ambassador, perhaps this conversation should continue in secure briefing." The Catharan nodded, and they moved to a small conference room overlooking Earth's swirling blue expanse below. Once sealed inside, Nexalor activated a small device that projected a star map into the center of the room. "Humanity has expanded rapidly in the past century," he began, gesturing to the clusters of green dots representing human colonies. "But you've been expanding into spaces that were never truly empty." "The Valorian Alliance," Ilara said, recognizing the configuration of stars marked in amber. "And beyond them," Nexalor continued, "the Void Dominion." Red markers appeared, scattered throughout what humans had considered empty space. "I don't understand," Director Reeves interjected. "We've had diplomatic relations with the Valorians for decades. They've never mentioned this Dominion." "Because they couldn't," Ilara whispered, the pieces suddenly fitting together in her mind. "The transmissions I've been receiving, they're leaking through some kind of perceptual barrier, aren't they?" Nexler's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with surprise. "Your insight is remarkable, Dr. Voss, yes. The two powers have been locked in what we call the Silent War, a conflict waged through subtle manipulation of space-time and perception rather than conventional weapons. And humanity has been blundering through the middle of it," Reeves said, his face pale. "Worse," Nexler replied. "You've been disrupting it. Something about human neural patterns makes you partially immune to the perceptual technologies both sides employ. Your very presence is forcing the Silent War to become less silent." Ilara thought of the strange transmissions growing stronger each night. "The signals, they're what, warning shots?" "They are much more than that, Dr. Voss. They are an invitation." Nexalor's eyes met hers. "And I need you to help me answer it before both the Valorians and the Dominion decide that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to continue expanding." As if on cue, Ilara's communicator chimed with an alert. The transmission pattern had changed. It was no longer directed at her station. It was broadcasting to every human settlement in the sector. The silent war was silent no more, and humanity had just been caught in the middle. Whispers of ancient enemies. The colonial settlement of Helios Prime shimmered under the light of twin suns, its gleaming geodesic domes contrasting with the rust-colored landscape. Ilara gazed through the viewport as their shuttle descended, still processing everything Nexler had told her during their 3-day journey from Earth. "The settlement leader is expecting us," Nexler said, his bioluminescent facial patterns shifting to a contemplative purple hue. "Tarek Osman has been informed of the situation's delicacy." Ilara nodded, studying the alien topography below. "And you're certain the transmissions are being received more clearly here?" "This colony sits at the convergence point of 3 disputed territories. The perceptual barriers are thinnest here." Nexler's voice dropped lower. "It's why I insisted we come personally rather than sending a diplomatic communique." The shuttle touched down on a landing pad at the settlement's edge. Through the heat shimmer, Ilara spotted a solitary figure waiting for them. Tarek Osman was not what Ilara had expected from a frontier colony leader. Tall and lean, with deep brown skin and eyes that seemed to catch the light of both suns simultaneously, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced the unknown and survived. "Ambassador Nexelor," Tarek greeted with a respectful nod before turning to Ilara. "Dr. Voss, your reputation precedes you." "As does yours," she replied. "Your work on frontier linguistic drift patterns was part of my doctoral studies." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "That was another lifetime ago. Before I decided the frontier needed more than just people studying it, they moved into the settlement's central hub, a circular chamber where holographic displays showed various monitoring stations throughout the colony." Tarek dismissed his staff with a subtle gesture once they were settled. 3 days ago, every communication system in this colony began picking up signals we couldn't identify, he explained, activating a hologram that displayed waveform patterns identical to those Ilara had studied. Then yesterday, something new happened. The display shifted to show orbital scans. Where empty space should have been, faint outlines of massive structures hung in geosynchronous orbit. "They've always been there," Nexler said softly. "You're just beginning to see them." "The Valorian listening posts," Ilara breathed, pieces clicking into place. "But if we can see them now, then the Void Dominion can as well," Tarek finished, his expression grave. Later that evening, Tarek led them to an underground facility beneath the main settlement, a cavernous space filled with antiquated equipment and strange crystalline structures. "We discovered this 3 years ago during excavation," he explained. "It predates human arrival by at least 10,000 years according to our carbon dating." Ilara ran her hand over one of the crystal columns, feeling a subtle vibration beneath her fingertips. "This isn't Valorian technology." "No," Nexler confirmed, his posture tense. "This belongs to the Void Dominion, a listening post abandoned but still partially active." Tarek crossed his arms. "So we've been living above an ancient alien spy station?" "More concerning is what happened when humans settled here," Nexler replied. "Your neural patterns, something about them interacts with these technologies in ways neither the Valorians nor the Dominion anticipated." Ilara connected her datapad to one of the crystal structures, watching as the familiar transmission patterns appeared, stronger and clearer than she'd ever seen them. "They're not random," she whispered. "They're responding to us, to human brain activity." Tarek moved closer, his shoulder almost touching hers as he studied the patterns. "What are they saying?" Ilara felt a strange flutter in her chest at his proximity, one she'd also experienced around Nexelor during their journey. She pushed the feeling aside, focusing on the data. "I think," she began, "I think they're trying to understand why they can suddenly perceive each other again. The Valorians and the Dominion, they've been hiding from one another for millennia using this perceptual technology. And human brains are like flashlights in a dark room," Tarek concluded. Nexler's bioluminescent patterns flashed with alarm. "We must leave immediately. If my suspicions are correct, both sides will now be converging on this colony." As if summoned by his words, the ground beneath them trembled. Above, through a viewport in the ceiling, the night sky filled with the sudden appearance of massive ships, their hulls shimmering as they phased into human perception. Too late, Tarek said grimly. The silent war just got loud. The Harmony Protocol. The neutral space station Concordia hung like a jeweled pendant against the backdrop of the Carina Nebula, its rotating rings giving it the appearance of a mechanical flower blooming in the void. It had been constructed centuries ago by a coalition of species now extinct, maintained by automated systems and declared sovereign territory by interstellar accords. No weapons beyond this point, stated the automated security system as Ilara. Nexler and Tarek passed through the biometric scanners. Their emergency evacuation from Helios Prime had been followed by a tense week of travel, dodging both Valorian and Dominion vessels. Will the Valorian representative actually meet us? Ilara whispered to Nexelor. Admiral Shara gave her word, he replied. The Catharan Conclave has served as intermediaries in this conflict for generations. They will honor diplomatic protocol. Tarek walked slightly ahead, his hand resting near where his sidearm would normally be. Diplomatic protocol didn't stop them from orbital bombardment of a human settlement. They were targeting the Dominion installation, not your people. Nexelor countered, though his tone lacked conviction. The central chamber of Concordia was a vast, circular space, its transparent ceiling offering an unobstructed view of the nebula above. Standing at its center was a figure that caused Ilara to pause mid-stride. Admiral Shara of the Valorian Alliance stood nearly 7 feet tall, her crystalline exoskeleton catching and refracting the station's ambient light into prismatic patterns across the floor. Unlike the rumors of Valorians that had reached human space, there was nothing mechanical about her appearance. Rather, she seemed composed of living crystalline light. Ambassador Nexeler, her voice resonated like wind through crystal chimes. You bring humans to a negotiation regarding matters beyond their comprehension. With respect, Admiral, Ilara stepped forward. It's precisely our comprehension that has brought us all to this point. Shara's faceted eyes turned toward Ilara, studying her with ancient patience. The xenolinguist who hears what should not be heard. Explain your hypothesis. Over the next hours, Ilara presented her findings. How human neural patterns interacted with both Valorian and Dominion perceptual technologies, creating a kind of bridge between the two. This confirms our worst fears, Shara finally said. The balance maintained for 20,000 years undone by the mere presence of your species. Not undone, Ilara argued. Changed. We can establish new parameters, a harmony protocol that accounts for human perception. Tarek stepped forward. The attack on Helios Prime killed 17 civilians. We deserve more than being treated as an inconvenience in your ancient war. The cost of our conflict is measured in extinct civilizations, human, Shara countered. Your 17 dead would be the first of billions if the Void Dominion were to gain ascendancy. Nexler moved between them, his diplomatic training evident in his measured tone. Perhaps it is time for both sides to consider that a third path exists. The Catharan Conclave proposes joint research into how human neural patterns might serve as a communication bridge, rather than a disruption. Later, in their assigned quarters, Ilara worked frantically on the neural interface designs while Tarek paced nearby. You trust them too easily, he said. I don't trust anyone, she replied without looking up. But I understand the pattern language now. Both sides are terrified. They've been locked in perceptual isolation so long they've forgotten what it means to truly communicate. Nexler entered with refreshments, setting them beside Ilara's workstation. His hand lingered near hers momentarily, and she felt that same inexplicable flutter. The Admiral has agreed to a preliminary test, he announced. Tarek stopped pacing. And the Dominion? We've received confirmation. They're sending an emissary. Ilara looked up from her work, glancing between the two of them. Tarek's intense human determination and Nexeler's alien wisdom. She realized with a start that she'd come to care deeply for both, in ways that complicated an already impossible situation. Then we have 12 hours to create a neural interface that can bridge technologies neither of you fully understands, she said. Pushing personal feelings aside, I suggest we get to work. Outside Concordia's viewports, the nebula pulsed with unusual energy patterns as more ships, both Valorian and Dominion, decloaked around the station, preparing for either a new beginning or the final end of a war older than human civilization. Broken equilibrium. The Void Dominion representative was nothing like Ilara had imagined. Where Admiral Shara was crystalline light and geometric precision, emissary Thalrin appeared as a swirling collection of shadows that occasionally coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape. Only the eyes remained constant, iridescent orbs that shifted through colors Alara couldn't name. Your neural interface is intriguing. Thalrin's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, but it cannot address the fundamental incompatibility that necessitated our separation millennia ago. They stood in Concordia's central chamber, now converted into a makeshift laboratory. At its center sat Alara's creation, a crystalline neural network interfaced with both Valorian light technology and Dominion shadow matrices. That's where you're wrong, Alara countered, fatigue evident in her voice after 3 days of non-stop work. The incompatibility was never technological, it was perceptual. Your species evolved to process reality in fundamentally different ways. Admiral Shara's crystalline form shimmered with what Alara had come to recognize as skepticism. The human suggests our ancient conflict stems from mere misunderstanding. Not misunderstanding, Tarek interjected, standing protectively close to Alara. Evolutionary divergence. Your ancestors evolved in a system bathed in constant light from 7 stars. The Dominion evolved in the shadow of a black hole. You literally cannot perceive reality the same way. Nexler stepped forward, his diplomatic training evident in how he positioned himself equidistant from both alien representatives, which is why humans are unique. Your neural structures evolved on a planet with both day and night, with both light and shadow as constants. A proximity alert blared throughout the station before either alien could respond. Tarek rushed to a monitoring station, his expression darkening. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL, he reported. Dominion vessels, heavily armed. Thalrin's shadowy form rippled with what might have been surprise. This is not our doing. A second alert sounded. Shara consulted her own monitoring device. Valorian battle group responding from the nebula's edge. They were not dispatched under my authority. Both sides have hardliners unwilling to risk a true end to the conflict, Nexelor explained grimly. They're moving to ensure negotiations fail. Alara looked between the alien representatives and the neural interface she'd constructed. Then we don't have a choice. We need to activate the Harmony Protocol now. The calibrations are incomplete, Tarek warned. Linking your mind directly to both alien consciousness matrices could be fatal. If those fleets engage, billions die, she countered. Not just humans, but countless beings across 3 civilizations. The station shuddered as the first long-range weapons fire struck its outer shields. Concordia's automated defense systems engaged, but they wouldn't hold against a determined assault. I will join the link, Nexler announced suddenly. Stepping toward the interface, Shara's crystalline form pulsed with surprise. The Catharan mind is not compatible with... I've studied both your perceptual technologies for decades, he interrupted. And I... His gaze shifted to Alara. I share certain neural patterns with humans that other Catharans do not. Understanding dawned on Alara. The strange connection she'd felt with Nexler wasn't just personal attraction. Their minds resonated on frequencies beyond normal species boundaries. I'm going in too, Tarek declared, moving to Alara's other side. 3 anchor points will stabilize the neural matrix. Before anyone could object further, the station rocked with another impact. Status alerts indicated shield failure was imminent. Alara took a deep breath, looking between Tarek and Nexler. One human, one alien, both now essential parts of her life. She activated the neural interface, feeling the cold kiss of crystalline connectors against her temples. The universe exploded into dual perception, blinding light and absolute darkness simultaneously. Through the chaos, she felt Tarek's steady human resolve on one side, Nexler's alien wisdom on the other. Together, they formed a bridge between incompatible realities. Through their linked consciousness, Alara broadcast a message in the pattern language she'd deciphered, not to the representatives in the room but directly to the approaching fleets. It carried not just information, but the actual sensory experience of perceiving reality through another species' consciousness. For one breathtaking moment, every being in both fleets simultaneously understood the ancient conflict from the enemy's perspective. Then darkness claimed her. Resonance of tomorrow. Alara awoke to the sound of quiet conversation. Her eyes opened to find herself in Concordia's medical bay, the nebula visible through a viewport beside her bed. Tarek sat nearby, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled by days without proper rest. "Welcome back," he said softly when he noticed her stirring. "You've been unconscious for 3 days." She tried to sit up, finding her body unusually heavy. "The fleets? The Harmony Protocol? Successful beyond anything we could have imagined." The voice came from the doorway where Nexler stood, his normally vibrant bioluminescent pattern subdued with fatigue. "Both fleets stood down. The neural broadcast you created, it changed everything. The hardliners on both sides experienced direct neural perception of their enemy's reality for the first time in 20,000 years, Tarek explained. It's difficult to maintain hatred for someone when you've literally perceived reality through their consciousness. Ilara noticed something different about the room, subtle shifts in lighting and shadow that seemed to accommodate both human and alien perceptual needs simultaneously. "They're working together now?" "The Trilateral Accord was signed yesterday," Nexler confirmed, moving closer to her bedside. "Representatives from the Valorian Alliance, the Void Dominion, and Human Space have agreed to form an integrated council. The silent war is officially over." Tarek took her hand gently. "Your neural interface technology is being adapted for diplomatic use throughout known space. They're calling it the Voss Protocol." Ilara looked between them, remembering the intensity of their shared consciousness during the interface linking. "And us, what happens now?" A moment of silence followed, heavy with unspoken emotion. "The Catharan Conclave has appointed me permanent ambassador to both human space and the new Trilateral Council," Nexler finally said. "I will be stationed on Earth for the foreseeable future." Tarek's hand tightened slightly around hers. "And I've been asked to lead the first joint Human Valorian Dominion scientific outpost at Helios. Prime will be rebuilding what was destroyed and creating something entirely new. Both positions would benefit greatly from the expertise of a xenolinguist specializing in perceptual communication," Nexler added, his facial patterns shifting to a hue Ilara had come to recognize as affection. Ilara understood the choice they were laying before her. During their neural connection, all three had experienced the depth of feeling between them, a complex emotional resonance that transcended simple human concepts of relationship. "Perhaps," she said carefully, "the Voss Protocol could be expanded to allow for more permanent forms of consciousness sharing across distances. A triad connection, maintaining our individual identities while creating something greater than the sum of its parts." The suggestion hung in the air between them, revolutionary yet somehow inevitable after what they'd experienced together. "The technology exists," Nexler confirmed, his voice gentle, "though no one has attempted such a connection outside emergency circumstances." Tarek smiled, the expression transforming his tired face. "Seems fitting that those who ended a 20,000-year war might pioneer new ways for different beings to connect." 1 month later, Ilara stood in Earth's orbital diplomatic center, watching as ships from dozens of worlds, including previously hidden Dominion vessels and Valorian light crafts, moved openly through shared space. Representatives from civilizations long separated by the perceptual barriers of the silent war were meeting face-to-face for the first time. She touched the small neural transmitter at her temple, feeling the immediate warm presence of both Tarek and Nexler across the vast distances of space, one rebuilding Helios Prime, the other navigating complex diplomatic waters on Earth, yet both intimately connected to her consciousness. The neural triad they'd formed was the first of its kind, a new model for connection across species boundaries that others were already beginning to explore. Not a loss of self, but an expansion of perspective that allowed each to experience life through multiple perceptions simultaneously. Through her connection to Nexler, Ilara could perceive the subtle light language of Valorian diplomatic exchanges happening across the room. Through Tarek, she felt the steady determination of humans working to rebuild their place in a vastly more complex universe than they had previously understood. And through her, both of them experienced the linguistic patterns that formed the foundation of the new interspecies communication protocols being implemented throughout known space. "Dr. Voss," a voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find Admiral Shara approaching, her crystalline form now modified with shadow technology that made her visible to Dominion perception. "The Council is ready for your presentation on the expanded Harmony protocols." Ilara nodded, feeling Tarek and Nexler's encouragement flowing through their shared connection. The universe has existed in divided perception for too long, she said, following the Admiral toward the council chambers. It's time we all learn to see through each other's eyes. Behind her, visible through the viewport, a new ship class emerged from Earth's shipyards. Its design a perfect fusion of human innovation, Valorian light technology, and Dominion shadow matrices, the first of many that would carry the combined knowledge of 3 civilizations into the stars. The silent war had ended not with destruction, but with harmony, a resonance of consciousness that would echo across the void for millennia to come.